I'm just going to give you a background of who I am for those of you that I do it for my students too. Like I said, I work at NSU, so I teach undergrad and graduate special education. So I teach teachers coming out to your school. We have been using EdPlan, which is yay! I'm excited about EdPlan because I used to use it for over 6 years. So I offer free training for schools that want EdPlan. It's so funny every time I see that, I see eyes get really big. I was born and raised in Florida, in Sarasota. I don't know how many of you know where Sarasota is. It's south of Tampa. I went to Florida State University where I got both my bachelor's and my master's in special education. At that time, they broke it off into disabilities, so it was learning disabilities and emotional behavioral disabilities. And then I started teaching. I taught in Tampa for about a year or two. I can't remember, it all blends in together. I taught 4th and 5th grades, pretty much what you used to call self-contained, the varying exceptionalities class. And then I moved to Dothan, Alabama. Does anybody know where that is? Yes. I taught in Dothan, Alabama for a couple years. I taught 8th grade there. That was one of those days where it was like, I don't think I'm ever going to teach middle school. And I got that job, and I never left teaching middle school after that. I fell in love with teaching middle school. So it's interesting, I hear a lot of students come to me and say, I'm only going to ever teach elementary school. I'm like, you say that, but just wait. And then I moved down to Fort Lauderdale area, worked at Plantation Middle School where I taught severe and profound. I'm not going to lie, I was scared when I first took that job because I was not trained in severe and profound, but they needed a severe and profound teacher, and I fell in love with it. Then due to budget cuts and the fact that actually that was a time frame when there was not a shortage of special ed teachers. If you look it up on the federal list, you'll actually see there was like 2 years it wasn't. I got almost got surplus, so they put me in gen ed science. I taught gen ed science, and that was an eye-opening experience, and that's where I learned a lot of strategies to teach science. I'm not going to lie, though. My students thought I literally put on a lab coat at the end of the day and did a bunch of science projects at home, because they must have thought I didn't have a life at all. And I really loved it. I loved working with gen ed as well, and then I became their special ed director for that school. That was the job I had prior. There's what they call an ESC specialist there. Down in Broward County, you have a special ed director for every single school. It is a very lawsuit-happy area, and I fell in love with it because I really liked working with the advocates, believe it or not. I know it sounds scary sometimes, but my advocates were great friends, and they taught me a lot, and I learned a lot from the parents, even going through due process. And then I took the position here at NSU once I finished up my PhD from Barry University, which is in North Miami, Florida. I was telling the last group that I was supposed to graduate the same semester Shaquille O'Neal did, but my dissertation got pushed back. So I did not graduate with Shaquille O'Neal, but he is a fellow alum, and yes, he actually went through and got his doctorate, so wasn't an honorary doctorate. And so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Now I'm at NSU, and like I said, I teach special education, but I also oversee the elementary ed, early childhood, library, no, not library reading anymore. Reading and, I forgot one already. Oh, it'll pop up at the end. Okay, so does anybody know what the answer to the first question is? How many disability eligibilities, don't say that 5 times fast, can a student become eligible to receive special ed services? Anyone know? Very good, 13. There's 13 both that the state of Oklahoma recognizes as well as our federal government. Does anybody want to name them off or no? They're like, no. There are 13, and you know, it's a few of your things, ADHD falls under other health impairments. So there's a couple of disabilities there that may fall under a different category. But as you know, and as you may or may not know, in order for a child to receive services in the state of Oklahoma and any other state, they have to have an eligibility. And that process is a different class or another session. All right, so anybody know of any famous scientists that may have had a disability? Mm-hmm.
Jack Horner, paleontologist.
There you go. Okay, well, do you know by any chance what type of disability?
Dyslexia.
Dyslexia. Mm-hmm. Okay. Dyslexia. What else? Anybody know anyone else? Some of them are a little bit more. Let's see. I think I've got them all on there.
Dementia had a mental disorder. Oh, there's your slide.
Oh, I did put that slide up there. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Dementia. I had dementia on here. They had it listed as low incidence ASD. Some people have listed it as a mental disability. So, yeah. Who else you see up there? Alexander Graham Bell, dyslexia. Now remember, some of these they're kind of theorizing it because back then they didn't have a lot of these different disabilities. You see Albert Einstein, a lot of people have said that he had autism. Thomas Edison, SLD and ADHD. There's quite a bit of documentation on him. If you're ever in the mood to do a research project in your spare time. Okay? So it just goes to show you, we know there's so many things that our students can do. And a lot of our students, even some of our students with severe and profound, I will have to tell you that's definitely the one thing when I taught severe and profound, I let my students involved as much as possible in the gen ed population, in the gen ed class. They always ate lunch with everybody else. A lot of times when we did science projects, I would bring them into the regular ed classroom and they do the science projects in labs with them. And it was a great learning opportunity because I would teach them during that week what was being discussed in the classroom when they were doing their science labs, so that we could tie it in to academically what they were going to do. And the students of the classroom, they were very welcoming of my students, and they had a really good time.
What ages?
What age? 6th, 7th, 8th grades? 8th graders? Just depended on kind of what grade was doing, because of course I had them all in one class, so it depends on who was doing what lab on what week. I was blessed with amazing science teachers in my school. We learned so much, and I learned a lot about science too when we go in there to doing science labs. Wasn't a whole lot about physics that I knew until I went into the classrooms and did some experiences. Okay. You go ahead. All right. So strengths in science. If you could get with maybe a partner or a group, if you guys can just kind of discuss some of the strengths students with disabilities have in science that you know of or that you've seen. And I was going to write your answers on the board, but then I realized I don't have a board. So if you could just jot down your answers and we'll share it with one another. So either go ahead and pair up. We lost. Did we lose? Oh, okay. Go ahead and pair up or get in a group in either one, whatever works for you, with a partner, or just kind of think about strengths in science that your students with disabilities would have. All right, so some ideas. What type of ideas did you all come up with?
I think it would depend on their interests. Like maybe one was interested in stars, so they might be focused on, and kind of, and I'm talking about 7th and 8th graders here, so I may be a little off base, but because I had one girl that she really liked the stars, and she would draw like a Big Dipper and in different things.
So maybe using her artistic abilities and relating it to stars or astronomy, right? Are there ways that you could also take her abilities though and her interest in stars and maybe somehow tie it into other topics in science to get her connected to other topics? Because that isn't the beauty of science, is that it's so vast. But of course, not everybody's going to be excited to learn about cells. And I was, but not everybody is. And sometimes it's hard for us when we're excited about those things. And they're like, how are you not excited about those things? And that's some things we struggle with a lot with some of our students with disabilities, because some of the things they're excited in, it's like, okay, we can't really relate to it. But you can find a way to relate to it. Well, there's always a way somewhere. Okay, but very good. Absolutely. Okay, what else? Any other ideas?
Hands-on science inquiry.
Yeah, hands-on.
I had a professor who did that and really got me interested in science.
I don't know why I just decreased here, so. Hands-on science. Can you guys see that okay? Sorry.
That is accommodating to all those kids on different learning modalities. You've got the visual, you've got the tactile.
Absolutely. And not necessarily even just students with disabilities. Any of your gen ed students, higher education, even in college, I have to make sure I'm doing hands-on activities to keep it. Because sometimes I have to teach class for 2 hours and 40 minutes. You'd be surprised, even I get tired of lecturing. So, so absolutely, hands-on is huge. Doing labs. I did a lot of virtual labs. I'm going to take you to some places that have virtual labs. Sometimes even, I did a lot of centers and stations with every topic I taught, but science, even when I was teaching gen ed science, and I had like 2 classes that were gifted, was our advanced science class. We did stations, and they loved it. It kept classroom behavior management the behaviors down, and they got very involved, and it was really fun to do. I was lucky because I taught a lot of earth science, so I found that I was actually teaching a topic that I was interested in. But you can always find a way to do it. Okay, so good, very good suggestion. Hands-on science activities. What else? Anything else? There's more, I promise. Want me to show you? Okay. Sorry, I'm totally like a math person at home and a PC person at work, so you think I'd be able to work this laptop a little bit better? Okay, so here are some struggles in science that they may encounter. Things with math fractions. We know that a lot of times we deal with fractions in science. I used to come up with all kinds of little manipulatives. By the way, how many of you are painting a house in the near future? Paint strips are awesome. You can use it for reading. You can use it for math. You can use it for science. I used to use these so much. This is a good little funny offside story. I had a student who knew I used these a lot in class and went, I guess that was at Home Depot or Lowe's with his mom one time, and he practically took almost every single paint or sample off the shelf, and he's like, "Here, I stole them for you." I'm like, well, okay, number one, they're free. Number two, though, you can't take all of them. It's kind of like one of those things that you just, you're taking a couple of them. Don't take all of them at the same time. It was so cute and so sweet, but at the same time, I was like, oh no, Home Depot's never gonna let that kid back in the store again. So I used them a lot for everything. Like this is measures of central tendency for math, and it just gives them little ideas of mean, median, mode, range, and just gives keywords on there. But a lot of times I had, because a lot of times students forget what the fractions are on a ruler. There's one, I think I have an example up here I'll show you that has the tens column and the ones column with paint samples. So charts and graphs, even though sometimes a lot of our students may have a strength in charts and graphs, some students may have a hard time reading some charts and graphs. Some of my students were better at reading line graphs than they were bar graphs, or vice versa. So maybe if there's ever a way that you can switch it, maybe they understand a circle graph better. Try to see if you can put it in a different format for them. Reading comprehension, we know that's a big one that a lot of our students struggle with. Obviously, word decoding too, but reading comprehension, they have a hard time reading in between the lines, that inferential reading, the stuff that's more abstract. That was something I think I struggled with. The majority of my students was, what was the author's purpose of this story? Well, I can't tell you how many times I had students say, I don't care why they wrote the story. Well, they kind of have a point if you think about it. But no, that's not what the question was intending. And you have sometimes stuff that pops up like that in science. Creating hypotheses. Even my students in higher ed have a hard time with that. I had a bit of a hard time for myself when working on my dissertation. Finding ways to chart that out, maybe to help them visualize it a little more. A lot more of our students, as we know, that have disabilities have a tendency to be more visual learners. But you have to find ways, and I'm going to show you some examples here in a little bit. Drawing connections between hypotheses and results, trying to really see, you're looking at all this information, so what does that mean? What's going to happen? A lot of times having them try to take the lead on a prediction, even if their prediction may be way off, they feel a little bit more comfortable with the fact that they're making that prediction, and you can help guide them to, okay, that's a great idea, but what do you think would happen if this happened? Having them think about other concepts. And then concepts not visible by eyesight. A lot of those things like cells are hard for them to understand because you can't see them. It's not concrete there in front of them. So those are some of the areas that they're going to struggle in. But of course, there's other areas that they're going to have many strengths in too. Here are some just examples of manipulatives. A lot of times, depending on your age range, you could even be teaching middle school, high school, be teaching severe and profound students that may need something like this as a guide to what would mean hot or cold on a thermometer. Those are eggs. Some of them have foot is 12 inches or one ruler to kind of they found some cheap, and I'm all about free and cheap manipulatives. Free and cheap manipulatives. My academic advisors were watching me yesterday because I was trying to make a couple more copies of these, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, that's an awesome idea. I'm very jealous that teachers nowadays have Pinterest. I did not have Pinterest when I was teaching, and there are a lot of great ideas that you can beg, borrow, and borrow again. I don't say steals too, but some of these I got ideas from other teachers. Here's the paint strips again, where you can see it's the 10s and the 1s, but maybe they just need, when they're doing their hypothesis or they're coming up with their theory, maybe they need these little tools just to help guide them. The left-hand side it's a baking sheet. I used to use that a lot. And I believe I can't really tell what it is. What stage is it? Is it the?
Is it a butterfly?
Yeah. So a lot of times I would change them out too, depending on what it was. So that way they actually, I believe they have magnets on the other side of them, so they can put them in order and they can match them. Just finding ways, little activities for them to do to practice that. And then of course you can make it more advanced as you need to, or make it adapted to their level. I also used to use that for reading as well, a lot of times with letters, doing little magnetic letters, or even in math. Just depends on what it was and what the student needed. Okay? All right, so mnemonics are huge. You know what mnemonics are, but things like please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Mnemonics is how I studied my PhD even. A lot of times to remember a lot of different concepts, I use mnemonics. So you can see here, here's a good example of, I stole it off of, okay, not stole, I hate the term stole, but I borrowed it from Pinterest. Question, research, hypothesis, experiment, conclusion, report. You can see at the bottom it says, quickly run home eating chewy raisins. Something that a child might be able to remember. And that's huge, because do you not use the scientific method if you look at the standards, especially, haven't they updated the science ones recently? The scientific method is, I don't know, is it all the way even into first grade and beyond, or maybe even kindergarten? And they're going to use it in college too. So all different types of ways you can, this is just a quick little chart you could put near their desk, maybe just a small little chart. You could even tape it onto their desk so they can go back and reference it. I had a lot of these references that weren't necessarily always up on the board. Sometimes I had it right there so it was immediately next to them when they needed it. So have your students create their own mnemonic. Have the class come up with it. There was a teacher one time that came up with like the DNA in a rap song or something, ways that the students can relate to it. It's on YouTube, I think, if you look it up. So I'm going to have you guys do another group activity, okay? And I'm going to have you create a mnemonic device. I've got paint strips for you, even if you want to use paint strips. And you are going to create, think of any science topic that you want. I wasn't going to be picky about it, per se. I guess you can really kind of use any of them. Whichever one. Sorry, I think I've used a lot of the colorful ones, and I think some of the tan ones are left. I apologize. So with a partner or in a group, whatever you want to do, each one, there should be enough for each one of you. If not, you know where to get them. All right, and go ahead and come up with your mnemonic device that you're going to share with, everybody's going to share their mnemonic acronym with the entire class, okay? So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay, so has anybody done with their mnemonics yet? That they want to share? It's okay, what stays in the media center, what is said in the media center will stay in the media center if anybody's embarrassed. Nothing to be embarrassed about. Kind of like Vegas, but not. You want to share yours, anybody?
I live my mom life. For the earth atmospheres, strong man, triceps explode, or hemisphere, stratosphere, metosphere, hemisphere.
Strong man's biceps explode. I love it. That was it. That's all there, right? I love it. That's awesome. Students are going to remember that for sure. Okay, very good. What else? Anything else? If you think of more while we go through, feel free to share. Okay, because I know sometimes it takes a while to think of a mnemonic. Feel free to keep your paint strip too. Okay, so here's an example of just a graphic organizer that, whether you want to use a Venn diagram or just a chart. I just put example up there. If you'll just start flipping through each one of the websites, that would be great. I'm hoping they work. They did yesterday. Okay. Okay, this is a really cool interactive Venn diagram. I don't know how many of you guys seen this website. So if you want to, Geraldine, you can put your name in and just pick a project if you want. So this makes it nice because the student can become authenticated work. That's what I like to call and use, the authenticated work all the time. So what she can do is she can literally, if you have a project, a lot of times this was something they would do as a group that I'd have them work on together, maybe when we were doing a station, this was one of the stations, they put together a Venn diagram. So I don't know, pick a topic in science you guys want to put together a Venn diagram for. It just makes it nice and interactive for them. I'm all about giving you guys tools that you can use in the classroom. It definitely helps keep their focus. So we want to pick a topic that would involve a Venn diagram that you can think of, or feel free to shout it out.
Birds and animals.
I'm sorry, what?
Birds and animals.
Birds and animals. Okay. Do you want to go back to the Venn diagram? Okay. So what do you want to put in the green circle? What word? You can even pick the circle color, which makes it fun for them.
Birds.
Birds, okay, is green. And then circle 2 would be animals.
Animals.
Okay. And I think you can even add more circles if you want. You can do that. So let's put some words that would go in the middle between what birds and animals have in common.
Let's put predators up there for
You
one.
want to put another circle for predators?
Yeah, and that way
Sure.
we'll have a little better interaction.
If you go to new circle at the top, Geraldine, what color do we want that? We want
I'll
it
make it red.
red?
Yeah,
Okay.
predators.
And predators. Good type of predators. I don't know if, I have a little bit of an issue with birds because they have a tendency to find my car. Uncontrollable bowel movements, I don't know. Okay, so predators, so we have predators, animals, birds. So what do all three have in common? So you can see, you can do this as a large group, you can do it as a small group, but what do all three have in common?
Well, they require food, shelter, and space.
Food, shelter, space, water. Food, shelter, water, space. We can put all that in there. I think if you put new item, I think it is, and then you can move it around. So you just put food for one, and then click, there you go, and you can move it around. Okay, so you could get the idea. I don't know, if you guys, any of you seen this website before? It's a lot of fun. It's awesome, it really is. And you can do different types of other diagrams, I think, with this website. If you go back to the science page and go to the next one, certain textbooks put out virtual labs. I just was kind of giving you an example of one of them. Did it open? Did not want to open? Oh, because you have to go to present, sorry. Open the top. Okay, so we could pick a topic. Anyone seem intriguing to you to look at? This is what I did for a lot of students with their stations. They would do a lot of these virtual labs, depending on what topic we were discussing. So let's say nutrition, we can do nutrition, and do a lab exercise, laboratory exercise. I haven't done this one per se, but some things that I think you can move them around if I'm not mistaken, or click on them. Actually, go. Oh, see, it pulls up the nutritional facts for multi-grain roll. Just depends. If you go back for a second, go back to the tab to the left. I'm trying to think of which one I played with a while ago. Yeah, go back another. Sorry, to go there. I can back up.
Into your present?
No, if you just go back one more tab, or the back arrow. Thank you, sorry. If you click on plant transpiration, and click on laboratory exercise, yeah, this one was cool. So I only know too, a lot of times with budget cuts, we don't have necessarily all these materials in our classes. I know we didn't, where I taught. So if you drag and obviously this would be involved, you have to show the students how to do it first. You can't just throw it to them and be like, okay, have fun with it. But if you click on one of the plants and drag it over to the little, down towards the lab table. It'll hang on the device. There you go. And so then you can pick the heater or the fan or the lamp. and it'll do a little experiments, and then it's nice because then the students can go in and log in what they witness. And if you click on the timer, and then it shows you the degrees in Celsius. And then they go in and log in. I think they have a place where they can actually virtually go in and log it, and then you can print out that paper. It's pretty neat because it teaches them. So you're really kind of teaching that the scientific method, and there's all different types of websites out there that have virtual lab. I can't remember off the top of my head all the ones that we used, but this one's free, and I think this one's either through Glencoe or somewhere else. I'm sorry, no, this is McGraw, yeah. Okay, if you go back to the presentation, so whenever you have some free time, you want to sit and play around with some virtual labs, feel free to do so. Click on the last one. I can't remember what I put up there, sorry. And this is another one having to do with earth science. How are materials from the earth broken down? And those are other virtual labs that are very similar. You feel free to put and then it takes you into, we used to do a lot of limestone in my science labs. And sometimes we would do real life little limestone to see what type of materials cause a limestone to bubble. But then they would also do it virtually because sometimes I'd run out of limestone. I would actually have the students go, we had a lot of limestone where we live, so I'd have them actually, as part of their project, to go look for some limestone at home if they could. Bring it in if they saw it. Okay. On the next page of the presentation, sorry. I love having a big screen like this. I wish I had a big screen. All right, now data collection. I'm real big on collecting data, obviously, not only for behaviors, as I kind of mentioned prior last session. But the students need to learn how to track their data. There's all different ways you can use, obviously, Excel, you can use Word. Word now, if you implement a graph or data, it will pull up an Excel spreadsheet. Google, however, I use a lot of Google Forms, Google Sheets, Google Docs, because you may not always have access to it. I don't know how many of your school districts use Google or have Google. I know some of you do. My husband teaches technology. A lot of them are using more Google accounts. We use it at NSU. You could even do a Google form where the students do a survey with the other students, and they were able to graph all that out too. And it had a topic pertaining to science and nutrition. I think they did. I had them do one time. So making sure that you monitor also their progress. I like to always explain that when you're teaching, you want to showcase what the students are doing. You want evidence. If a student is struggling in science and has a science goal on their IEP, you want to showcase what they're doing. My teachers knew that when they came to my IEP meeting, they better not come empty-handed. They had evidence in their back pocket to show this is everything they're doing. I had an advocate ask me before, or ask another teacher at the meeting going, that's all hunky-dory, that sounds great that they can do that, but show me, where's the evidence? It makes sense. Don't we want to show and sit down with the student? I love to always sit down with the student. Some of this is an example of them graphing it themselves, graphing their own progress. So they can actually see that they're making small gains, because we know a lot of our students have learned helplessness. They've failed so many times that they're just, what's the point? Why are they going to try? And our job is to motivate them so that they can. So sometimes having different types of self-monitoring, they can actually make your job a little easier too when they're monitoring their own progress, right? Because then they learn how to do it themselves. And you can even do it at a younger age, even in some of the elementary grades too. So again, I'll just kind of put this up there for any of you that may be interested. These are the programs we have at the college. Like I said, our new Master's of Special Education that focuses on autism now has 43 students in it. We just started it last fall. It's a brand new program. We also have our reading master's degree and our early childhood master's degree as well. Of course, we have our undergrad degrees. This is all within curriculum and instruction. We have more programs than that, but these are just the ones that I oversee.